Good morning. Peace be upon you all. Many happy returns to you all. Good morning to you all. Please sit down.
المؤتمر الوطني الثامن للشباب
and make it take off. This is the 8th conference of young people being held under the auspices of President Fattah el-Sisi. Your Excellency President Fattah el-Sisi, dear audience, good morning to you all. Many greetings to you all at the outset of the 8th Young People Conference. We do really hope that this 8th conference is hoped to give young people impetus, in order to give young people this impetus after the country has already undergone a dangerous or perilous stage or phase in its history. This is a new version. Actually, the conference was at one time a dream on the minds of young people. However, many versions of the past few years have taken off in Alexandria, Ismailia, and some other places. These conferences have, over the past years, provided platforms of quiet discussions and quiet debate, out of which a lot of useful and constructive ideas have emerged. Over we have been meeting brilliant, successful young people over the past 7 versions of the conference. Actually, these models on which we have cast light on have been a model to follow.
بشكل علمي مخطط ومدروس وخطوات على أرض الواقع جاء ملف تمكين الشباب.
Scientifically speaking, the file of empowering young people, has been given a top priority since President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi assumed power. I've decided that the year 2016 be designated as the year of Egyptian young people. The audience at the conference, ladies and gentlemen, are watching a video footage of the drive which President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has been driving in order to expand the empowerment of young Egyptian people. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi started by designating the year 2016. In the year 2016, the first version of the young people of the youth conference was designated to be a platform for dialogue among young people. In the name of God, I declare open the first version of this youth conference. This platform has given young people unrestricted access to express, to vent their own viewpoints on a very wide range of issues of concern. Youth conferences have been shuttling among all major cities in the country. They started at Sharm el-Sheikh and then moved through Alexandria and Ismailia. In tandem with the youth conference, a youth grooming program, a so-called presidential youth grooming program has been launched in order to involve all young people, to groom young people to be capable of making decisions. Young people have been appointed to high government posts. They have been appointed to assistant ministers, assistant governors. Working groups of young people have also been formed in order to give assistance to all major agencies of the government in order to give much needed assistance to these agencies.
وجاءت تجربة نموذج محاكاة الدولة المصرية التي شهدها المؤتمر الوطني السابع للشباب.
The seventh youth conference recently held at the new administrative capital witnessed a simulation of the Egyptian state, giving all young people the opportunity, an ample opportunity, to express their own opinions on a wide range of issues. The experiment of empowering young people has not been exclusively limited to empowering them or rehabilitating them, but the state has also, as represented by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, has been keenly and eagerly interested in honoring top achievers in sports, for example, and the state has been relentlessly supporting young people to start young entrepreneurs to start up their own businesses. So an agency for small and medium-sized enterprises has been set up for this purpose. Egypt's experiment to empower young people has been an inspiring one, not only for the Arab world, but for the entire world, even to the extent of the United Nations itself paying tribute to Egypt for holding such platforms for young people. Egypt has been widely acclaimed and widely praised for this ample chance given to young people. However, the experiment has never ceased. The experience of empowering those young people to be future leaders of the country has been supported and will always remain supported by the government and President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi for a brighter future under the auspices of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi himself.
Egypt. شاف العمل سهران في البلاد والعزم اتولد ما شافش الامل عيون الولاد وخطايا البلد ولا شاف العمل سهران في البلاد والعزم اتولد
15到20公里每小时。
导弹出头，
漂亮，空中开花，
很漂亮的一个空中开花。
真的是萨拉赫梅克最美妙的公园。
They are the Chinese. These have been all brilliant and excellent models of how Egyptian young people have achieved. Let me first of all pay tribute to the champions of the African tournament who are present with us here. They are dressed in red. Those young people dressed in red are Egypt's athletes who have recently taken part in the African sports tournament, which has recently been held in Morocco. So Egypt must be happy with its young people. Its young people constitute the very close link between Egypt's past and future. Now everyone has come to realize that those people, those Egyptian people, are capable of realizing ambitions, realizing their own ambitions, and to realize hopes pinned on them by their own country. They have been contributing immensely to all seven versions of youth conferences held recently, from the very beginning, from the very start in Sharm el-Sheikh in 2016 and up to this present conference. Your Excellency President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the 8th youth conference includes the following activities: the opening session, which has to do with entitled the assessment of Egypt's experience in combating terrorism. The number 2 session will be devoted to the media impact, or the impact of disseminating through the media of lies and false news. And then comes the closing session, which is entitled Ask the President. All terror organizations have been relentlessly waging a war against Egypt in order to bring down the country, in order to scorch the land, to burn the country down. So the topic to be discussed, the choice of the topic for the opening session on the assessment of the danger of terror on the country, actually demonstrate how eagerly interested the country or the government has been in combating and fighting, spearheading the war against terror.
في عام 2018 تكلف العالم اقتصادياً 60 مليار دولار بسبب الإرهاب، ويومياً يحصد الإرهاب أرواحاً لا تقدر بثمن.
A video footage being screened inside the conference hall. It says that in 2018 the entire world has had to incur $80 billion in its fight against terror.
عام 2015. ولكن هو اختلاف وتطور العصر وتعقد الصراعات الذي جعل للإرهاب أشكالا متنوعة. فهناك إرهاب
with
يدخل الدين ستارا
the
لتحقيق
elapse of
المصالح
time,
المفرطة،
terror
وإرهاب
has
يدخل من
been
القومية ستارا
been taking so many forms and so many shapes. Terror has sometimes disguised itself in a religious cloak, some others, but however, mainly terror has mainly spearheaded notions regarding the entire people as blasphemous. They started to disseminate the false ideas or the notions that the entire people of the world are blasphemous, are atheists. They regard the entire world as people of Jahiliyyah, or people typical of those people who used to live before the emergence of Islam in the 7th century. And spearheading this terrorist activities has been the terrorist Muslim Brotherhood organization. Actually, the terrorist Brotherhood organization has been, since its very foundation in 1928, has been the cloak from which all other subsidiary or affiliate terrorist organizations have always emerged. They have been employing, throughout the past years, they have always penetrated into parliament to get seats to be able to be in control of matters of the country. They have been giving ceaseless support and relentless support to armed organizations, other armed affiliated organizations, to carry out subversive people. The entire people took out the streets on June the 30th to claim and to declare that the army has positively responded to the call made by the people and aligned itself with the people to topple and oust the Muslim Brotherhood. The terrorist Muslim Brotherhood has been toppled by the army together with the people since the year 2013. However, those terrorist organizations spearheaded by the terrorist Brotherhood organization has been spearheading cyber warfares by disseminating false news. They have been employing has been spearheading a warfare, has been spearheading a war against such clandestine organizations. Egypt's experience in fighting those terrorist organizations managed to contain such first among all arms of the world to align itself with its people. This footage which we have already watched proves beyond any doubt that had it not been for this firm stand forged by the army and civil police people, the people wouldn't have been able of repelling Be creative, be innovative, and make your takeoff. This is the slogan always made by such youth conferences. The first symposium The first panel is about to start. Panelists have taken the seats on the stage and they are going to tackle the first topic of the assessment of the experience of fighting terror by Egypt is the topic, the issue to be discussed, to be debated by this first panel. So many countries have been fighting, have been doing their own battle against terror. However, audience attending and to help public opinion understand what has been going on. Dear audience, Dr. Khalid Okasha, the first panelist, young researchers, young researchers, Ms. Tuqa Al-Nagar, Mr. Mahmoud Qasim. They are young researchers at a number of think tanks in Egypt concerned with fighting terror. Well, let's start talking about the assessment. Everyone knows that a few days ago, terrorist attacks on the United States. My question is, well, this terrorist was this terrorist attack on the United States did it represent a milestone in the history? It has been a milestone in helping to drive the course of action against terrorist activities. A chart of terrorist activities in order to give some insight. Maybe the well, at every phase we had to face a new version of terrorism. Each version has been a milestone. We have seen the disguise of terrorist activities disguised as religious people and the use of religion. Well, actually, disguising as religious people and using terror to influence people, to influence the actions of people, has been the foundation stage, has been a major stage. Well, actually, it has been a historical irony that such terrorist attacks usually, as we have noticed, 2001, the use of terror. The use of terror has been reliefly noticed within the equation of world conflicts. They at the time as international jihad or international holy war. At the time it was some other analysis. According to the analysis, such terrorist activities was the bullet which hit the bull's eye. Well, actually, we all remember that by the beginning of the 1990s, the entire world was greatly and to a large extent influenced by the toppling and fall of the Soviet Union. Well, we remember, we remember quite well at the time of the 90s, people would go down the street and say, yes, there was a massive propaganda machine that attempted to depict the entire. In 2011, well, actually, what about the year 2011? Well, if we are going to assess the phase of 2011, we have to go back, and I'm sorry for taking length. The operation against the United States in 2001, the two Twin Towers. The United States declared for the first time ever that it is going to lead a world alliance against terror, and it was the first time ever that a world country the danger of terror has been around, has been there, has been knocking at the door. So they have forged an international alliance to fight terror. We have seen countries sending troops. We have seen the United States and some other countries sending troops to some other countries in order to fight terror. It has to be mentioned as well that within the United States itself, there has been terror experts on terror as a disguise or a terror as a pretense for attacking other countries and attacking and assaulting other people. We have seen that the capabilities of an entire country such as Iraq has been immensely devastated, and this has been the first time ever to see such a country being invaded by another country and to topple the ruling regime and devastate the entire capabilities of the country. From throughout the years 2007, 2008, 2009, the entire phenomenal terror has started to subside or has started to recede. However, this was not the case. Terror activities have been to be triggered off, as we have all seen in the so-called Arab Spring, when everyone who was being groomed, who was being prepared, were prompted in 2011, since 2011 in Egypt and other countries, were prompted to come out, to take the streets. So what the entire world thought of as years of defeat, in which the terrorist activity had only been latent, to re-emerge and resurface once more across the world.
هل حصل يعني تغيير في شكل في طبيعة هذه التنظيمات هياكلها التنظيمية
since throughout the past 10 years. Well, since it's a very since it's the very beginning, the entire phase starting with 2011 has shown so far that terrorism has identified itself with political reform, to take advantage of or to capitalize on dissent in some countries. Of course, the version we have been talking about, the version from running from 2011 until now. Actually, terror since 2011 has been exercising used to do, but it has been attempting to topple the entire state, or assuming power. There has been a linkage of interest between some terrorist organizations on
اللي بتدل أو بتؤشر يعني وفقا للملاحظة والمتابعة الدقيقة طوال الفترة بأن هناك من يساعدها ومن يدعمها.
We have seen that some stakeholders in some regional stakeholders have been relentlessly and ceaselessly supporting some terrorist organizations. When the Egyptian state said that it has been taking action over the past few years to fight terror, actually it means business. It means that actually the entire landscape has become all the more complicated because of regional conflicts marring the entire Middle East region, have delayed the settlement, or has to a great extent delayed the settlement or the quelling of such terrorist activities. Terrorist organizations, we have to admit, have their own capabilities. They have shown a shift, a qualitative and quantitative shift. There has been a larger number of terrorist activities resurfacing and emerging from scratch. In some estimates, there have been more than 100 terrorist activities. They have been planning, carrying out such terrorist organizations. There have been 230,000 such terrorists dotted along all such terrorist organizations, particularly in the Arab region and Northern Africa, the Middle East region, and then comes Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, have featured prominently in terms of having the highest number of terrorist activities. Has witnessed over the past decade some like 33,000 terrorist operations.
الطفرة النوعية اللي
quantitative shift has not been limited, has not been the only manifestation of the growth of terrorist organization. There has also been a qualitative shift.
تغير هيكل التنظيم زي ما
The structure of a terrorist organization has undergone a radical change. Hierarchical system always characterize such terrorist organization. A pyramid-like structure used to be the main or the major feature.
تحافظ على هذا النمط، لكن
It's a brotherhood, and it's the terrorist brotherhood organization which has been attempting to maintain this manifestation of hierarchical or pyramidal structure.
خلايا تعمل وفقا لأدواتها
However,
وأساليبها.
there have been
الشكل الحالي
some other cells working according to their own shapes or activities.
تحول التنظيم إلى شباب
Now, some terrorist organizations, the organization Brotherhood, as well as some other organizations, have shifted from the hierarchical or pyramidal shape into harder to trace and pursue members of the organization. For example, if the organization is being targeted by security agencies at some cluster or at some of its parts, the other parts can readapt their own position, their own situation, can readapt to the situation and accommodate. Actually, the qualitative shift has not been exclusively limited to the structure of such terrorist organization, but it has also expanded to include the capabilities of these organizations as well.
حضرتك ان تقدير الامم المتحده لداعش بعد هزيمته وخروجه من معاقله في سوريا والعراق ان ميزانيته تقريبا 300 مليون دولار. لكن في
We have come to know from, for example, from the United Nations, for example, that Daesh, after being flushed out of its hideouts in the region, we've come to know that the expenditure or the budget of Daesh amounted to 300 million US dollars.
مسألة شراء النفط من داعش.
يعني ممكن اقول لحضرتك
I can tell you even that
عالمية، يعني وليست تقديرات محليه، التقديرات العالميه
I can even quote
في خلال الفترة
world global estimates that
كانت 88% من ايرادات داعش تاتي من تهريب النفط
that 80%, let me quote for you, quote international estimates which show that until 2007, Daesh used to generate revenues by smuggling oil, for example, smuggling oil from producing countries to consuming countries as well.
من خلال متابعتي لما يجري الساحة
By the president of a neighboring country.
ما يجري في إدلب. استخدم مصطلح السيطرة.
It's important.
قال عن شرق الفرات
It's important to control. It's important to control terrorist activities there, and he used the term control moderate terrorists, all kind terrorists, and other terrorists who are not moderate or are not kind enough. This is what this president of a regional country said in an interview published yesterday.
تأثير الطفرة النوعية اللي حصلت في مجال الاتصالات وازاي كانت هذه التنظيمات أجادت توظيف الفضاء السيبراني.
Those terrorist organizations have been capitalizing well on
معلومات عن الأماكن
the cyberspace.
تخطيط لعمليات معينة، لكن هناك
These cyberspace sites showed conspiracies or plot. No, but you can even but the real thing that you can even say is are made or how bombs are being made, for example.
في بعض العمليات الإرهابية في أوروبا. في مجال الاتصالات بقى هنا
In the area of communications, we have to go back to an important point. What about the victims? What about the victims of terrorist organizations? It's important for the public opinion, particularly young people, to know clearly the human cost.
خسائر البشرية كبيرة جدا وهي
The human cost has been so dear.
أنا بكلم حضرتك على أحد السنوات
I'm here 2017, more than 18,000 young people have either lost their lives.
عن عام 2017
In the year 2017 alone, 18,000 people have either lost their lives or have ever since been maimed for life.
خلال النصف الأول من عام 2019
In the first half of the year 2019, there has been an increase of 22%. There's been increase in the first quarter of the first half of 2019. There's been increase by 22% in the number of casualties. Actually, of course, economic losses cannot be ignored as well. Economic losses cannot be. The world economy has lost something like 771 billion US dollars because of terror across the world. And let me go back again to the qualitative shift in the area of communications among terror activities, because communications have been an important part for influencers. They have been turning to very good account the cyberspace. Terror activities have been using to good account cyberspace in order to recruit people. They couldn't have recruited new people to the organizations, or they couldn't have made any financial transfers only if they haven't used terror organizations. We have been talking about terrorist brotherhood organization, Al-Qaeda and Daesh. We have been concentrating on these through. Actually, all those major organizations are known to have come out of the cloak of terrorist brotherhood organization. Reading the to assert, to substantiate all the talk made three major terrorist organizations. Terrorist brotherhood organization. This number one, Al-Qaeda number two, and Daesh number three. Hassan al-Banna, Sayyid Qutb, the founders of terrorist brotherhood organizations, have always provided a base, a foundation for all other terrorist organizations to come out and emerge and attempt to bring the entire nation under control. One of the founders of terrorist brotherhood, Sayyid Qutb, brought up the ideas of al-Hakimiyya, or the rules of hardline Islam should be applied to, have provided the basis. Ayman al-Zawahiri, one of Qaeda leaders, revealed that he and his organization of Al-Qaeda has been maintaining closer links with terrorist brotherhood organization. All terrorist all terrorist organizations have been drawing on the foundations and the doctrines of terrorist brotherhood for the principle, for the guiding principles. Even Sheikh Qaradawi, he himself was a member of the terrorist brotherhood organization. Even terrorist brotherhood has been represented for years by some, and the doctrines and principles of terrorist brotherhood as their own foundation of thought. They have been, a terrorist brotherhood or organization has been attempting hard over years in order to recruit more people. Some extremist and radical organizations have been spotted, have been detected in some countries, and they have admitted, they have conceded to have espoused the principles, and those organizations spearheaded by terrorist brotherhood organization, they have been spearheading a campaign for empowerment in all countries of the region. Terrorist brotherhood organization has recently been spotted as supporting, has been detected as supporting some organizations even as far as Latin America. Some organizations have been spotted in Latin America being supported. They have been pursuing the doctrine, of coexisting, at least initially, of coexisting with society and befriending other members of the public who do not belong to terrorist brotherhood. And then they gradually start to introduce or to pursue violent activities, and even to the extent of creating or setting up between the years 2011 and 2013 we saw between the 2 years 2011 and 2013 that terrorist brotherhood organizations have been supporting people who have been spearheading the so-called Arab Spring. However, Egypt, by triggering and dismantle all and break up all plotted activities to topple the state. Has there been any coordination or linkage involving all those terrorist organizations? Well, in order to answer this question, we have to say that Al-Qaeda terrorist organization wouldn't have been able to surface and emerge and carry out its subversive activities had it not been for the finance of terrorist brotherhood organization, for example. Banking and finance down to the hands of late Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden. Al-Qaeda, Daesh has been the latest terrorist version exported by terrorist brotherhood. Organization has recently disclosed that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi who belongs to Daesh terrorist organization once was
المبتدئين. الجزء الثاني اللي حضرتك بتسالني فيه ان في علاقات ارتباط ما بين التنظيمات
You asked me about the linkage among terrorist organizations. Actually, this, let me refer to some. There has been joint exercises received by terrorist brotherhood organization members who have received military training in Syria and some other areas now plagued by Daesh organization. Some personnel, some members of terrorist brotherhood organization are said to have received training in such camps. One of the visual versions regularly released by Daesh, one of the members of Daesh confessed to have training or having given training to terrorist brotherhood organization. He was detained and imprisoned by the Egyptian authorities. He had been assigned to coordinate with some terrorist organizations such as Daesh. Than a minute. Has there been any what we can call a revival, a new revival of Al-Qaeda? There has been coordination, there has been close coordination between Al-Qaeda and Daesh in the region. According to international reports, we have found out that there have been recent attempts on the political landscape in order to revive or rejuvenate Al-Qaeda organization. Term appeared called the returnees, those returning from the Afghan war who have joined Daesh. Would like to know the magnitude of this phenomenon of those returnees joining the terrorist organization of Daesh. Those returnees had actually left their own home countries and joined Daesh. Actually, we haven't got a specific number of those returnees who have come from the Afghan war or any other conflict region in the world and joined. But according to rough estimates, there have been something like 41,000 that those returnees 120 nations. According to the United Nations, they belong to only 88 countries, but according to our estimates, they belong to 120. The Eastern Europe, Western Europe have contributed each 6,000 such terrorist fighters to those clandestine terrorist organizations. However, women have even contributed to such clandestine organizations. In taking care of this notion, have been incubating such radical notions and radical have even created terrorist-minded families. To the country they immigrated, to for carrying out their terrorist activities, they had left behind their own wives, and in the new countries they have left in order to carry out espoused the same terrorist doctrines as well. So they have, by doing so, they have formed terroristic families. Entire families have come to be known, are now known to be terrorist-minded families. The map is going to show us the existence or the spread of such terrorist organizations. In conflict regions in Syria and Iraq, we find these two clandestine organizations of Daesh, two branches of Daesh organization dotted in both Iraq and Syria. In Central Asia, a hardliner branch of Daesh in the province of Khorasan in Iraq. However, all those branches have been dynamic. Traditional, conventional zones of influence, they are going to exercise their own radical, exercise and impose their own radical doctrines. I also agree with what my colleague Hussein said about the spread of such terrorist mind organizations in Latin America. Well, you have said, I have detected from what you said that there could be a country acting as a middleman, or acting in the middle between the sending country, the country which has sent the terror or the terrorist, and the receiving country, a transit country actually between the sending country and the receiving country. There have been family terrorist activities, have also been. Well, actually, those returnees are also feared that they are going to work hard to disseminate and call for and propagate their radical thought by the time they go back to their homeland, to their countries of origin. And there has also been the so-called reverse recruitment. That's to say, criminal gangs which have nothing to do with terror, criminal gangs attract those returnees in order to capitalize on their military experience and experience in carrying out subversive activities in their criminal areas. Can we understand from well, we could say that terror between the years 2011 and 2019 has been the bloodiest version of terrorist activities because of persisting military conflicts. The entire region between these 2 years of 2011 and 2019 has been ceaselessly and relentlessly plagued, scarred activities, because a country plagued or scarred by a conflict actually doesn't feature any a country bogged down or bogged down in a conflict actually doesn't seem to have any government to control everything, to control things. We have seen in our region that there have been some countries that to make political gains. So we have to admit that some of our regional countries have been staunchly supporting terror organizations, either by giving finance or by providing media platforms for them to speak on. And some of those countries have even harbored some of those terrorists in order to attack Egypt. However, Egypt, in order to square up to these terrorist activities, has launched a broad confrontation against these terrorist organizations. Not the debunking or refuting the radical thought. We have seen some regional countries supporting some of its agencies, some of its agents or lackeys or proxies in the country. We, according to estimates, some of these radical organizations have now capabilities because they have been supported by such regional countries. Some of these countries Some of these terrorist organizations have declared that they are supporting Islam as understood within only a narrow hardliner interpretation of some religious texts. They have been, we have seen such organizations, and organizations have been also have been capitalizing on some even terrorist assaults which have taken place even in Europe, like the one taking place in New Zealand a few months ago against some Muslim there. I believe that the future map of for example, some of these organizations have to be situated in some influential regions in order to regain and restore, according to new tactics and new strategies using modern technology. These terror organizations are expected to manipulate and to use up and take advantage also virtual currencies. The so-called virtual currencies are also predicted to be used by such terrorist organizations in order to finance their own activities. In March 2018, were detected as they were producing some smartphones. Some of those smartphones have been made by such companies known to be supporting those terrorist activities. Those terrorist is detained or arrested in order to erase or delete all the information and continue to carry out their own activities. Before I declare the session closed, let me go back to Dr. Khaled, the director of the Security Center, once more. A European country which I cannot name is known to have a European country which I'm not going to name has attempted to reintegrate experience has faltered or has completely, utterly failed. Actually, the matter is much more complicated. It's too complicated to merge or reintegrate those people once more into society, because those terrorists are not simple as they were in the past, or in the past versions of terrorist organizations, because they have been so they couldn't have reintegrated into their own societies back once more. As the saying goes, the entire region seems going to how do you think now that actually these these industries have been made in order to reignite further international disputes and conflicts caused by international competition. The title mentioned by Mr. Mahmoud about in talking about the future, unfortunately, conflicts still incubate terrorism. Unfortunately, we have to admit, because to some countries, terrorism is being called into the political landscape by some countries in order to resolve hard political equations in some regions. We are now aiming in order to raise more awareness among young people of the dangers. So this issue of the need to fight terror is not driven home well to young people. So we have to study history of those clandestine terrorist organization, to study how the past few years of latency, during which those clandestine terrorist organizations were latent. We have to think about those years and study all on terror by launching the Operation Sinai 28. And the operation has been doing well. However, we have to continue fighting terror. We cannot, nevertheless, despite what has been said, we cannot say that Egypt is clear of the influence of terror, because terror has been raging around Egypt in some areas, in some regions, which are so important to Egypt's national security. We have to open up for Your Excellency, the President. Before I close this session, have you got any comment? Thank you. I'm not going to make any question. I'd like to thank you for your overall approach to the matter. I am going to wrap up what has been said by the panelists. I have to say that I have to ask, when terror was used, for example, if I'd like to enter a showdown, and this showdown or confrontation is entailing at any cost of military or economic cost or military cost, in the years between 1980 and 1990. And actually, as you said, that the phase ended with the collapse, with the toppling of the Soviet Union. Actually, I'd like to tell you that the doctrine of radicalism itself, of terror itself, couldn't have snowballed like this or grown like this unless it has been always supported by countries, by large countries.
عشان بس ده اتعملت في مدارس في باكستان اسمها مدارس طالبان. المدارس دي قعدت 8 سنين يتجمع فيها
Taliban schools in Pakistan over 8 years, within the decade of years referred to between 1980 and 1990, those Taliban schools into them such radical thought. By instilling into them radical thought, you have given those young people the tools for and they arrive in all countries of the world here, and those listening to me. An entire approach has been pursued involving young people from A to Z, telling them that what you are going to do, as we are going to instruct you to do, is something honorable, is something fully in compliance with religion. In any creed, Muslim faith or Jewish, if you would like to create, to pursue, if you would like to create, if you would like to create in such or pursuing such an approach to convince people or to persuade people to kill other people under the pretext or under these guise of religion, this could easily be done by twisting or by taking religious texts out of their own context. The other point, this idea has supported other countries to build bases and to pay money to finance other countries to exercise clout or influence by using those terror-minded people. So we have now to and how the other one is to use those people who have been brainwashed as a political power to exercise influence. And even those organizations have been capable on their own self-capabilities, on their own capacities. There have been social media sites, but who is really the mastermind controlling all those social sites? It's not known directly or clearly known who is or who has been the mastermind behind all those radicalism-oriented terrorist organizations. As Dr. Khalid said when he quoted the year 2001, there's been another critical juncture after what happened after the because actually you attacked the world superpower and you prompted the United States to action. The Americans could say, for example, we have already spent billions of dollars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and this could be used in order to drain the resources, the capacities of other nations. some things that could happen is a global issue. That's why Egypt has forged a clear-cut position on fighting it. The aspirations, ambitions of people and we are interested. Resistance by the Egyptian state should remain under our sight. We should have an eye on the capability of the Egyptian state to resist. When did terror go to Syria? In 2011, 12 and 13. And when did it arrive in Egypt? After 2011. So the Egyptian state was greatly influenced by such terror since the year 2011. Ultimately, the outcome of such terror is to diminish, is to attenuate, to weaken the capability of the country, to make the country appear as too small, too weak. So to go back to the issue, it was in Syria in 2011. Create a vacuum as we did in Iraq. I'm talking frankly and candidly, though it's too dangerous to say this on air. How to devastate? By traditional war? By traditional warfare? No, as I've said before, no traditional war can do, no traditional or conventional warfare can do to a country as terror, unless you use terror. I cannot send aircraft to strike or launch air raids against neighboring country. No, I can't do this. But through terrorism, through supporting terror networks and terror clusters, I can do this. Clusters of terrorists do penetrate, do sneak into other neighboring countries and devastate a country, such a country, from within. However, I can give them, such terrorists can be given weapons, can be given training at a remote area camp to be ready. An ambush of our troops where 7 or 8 of our people, our troops, are killed. This happens much to our grief and sadness. Cost to 1 or 2 or 3 million US dollars, but they can lay an ambush for our troops or attack a facility with some machine guns and some rounds of bullets. I have told you before, either to surrender leadership of Egypt to them or to resist them. We have to resist them. And political conflict between us and them will be persisting in the future, because they have been plotting to devastate Egypt. Terrorism is based on the principle of striking or striking the center of religion, the heavyweight center of religion, not Islam but religion in general. Gravity center is the notion of religion itself is not attractive. When we have today 55 Muslim countries, what's going on? What's going on? Terror, the body, the human body, in case of cancer, it's or giving it chemotherapy or radiotherapy. And throughout these phases of treating this persistent cancer with chemotherapy or radiotherapy, the human body weakens. Terror is quickly spreads as quickly as cancer, human cancer. A day, how much money a day costs in carrying out its operations against terror, and then comes a little fellow who comes and say and tries to defame or deface the entire of the audience. This is the only good army now in the region.
فازاي بقى؟ طب انت النهارده لما تيجي تسيء، ما انا عايز اقول لكم ان الموضوع اصلا على بعض مش حته لا يتجزأ.
Actually, we have to look upon the entire picture as a whole, rather than piece by piece. We have been talking about the notion of crossing points among all topics. Finally, I'd like to say, I'd like to topple Egypt. This is what they think of. How to topple Egypt. How to topple Egypt while Egypt has been persistently building itself and resistably building itself. I'm telling you important things. How to topple Egypt. They want to topple Egypt. Egypt will not topple. Egypt will not topple. There has been a conspiracy. There has been a plot or conspiracy. Joint conspiracy have been targeting both of them in order to topple the entire nation, to topple the country. They have tried to lead the country, and they have utterly failed to lead the country when they came to power. We have to learn one thing. What I'm saying now, has in the past been said by me to all representatives of political parties when I was just a chief of the military intelligence. I've told them that none of your political parties during this therapy, during this chemotherapy, the president is likening the state of the country when it's being penetrated by such terrorist organizations to a human body which suffers a lot of weakness and attenuation even as it's being treated with chemotherapy or radioactive therapy.
استخدم الارهاب في تدمير ليبيا
And
انطلاق من منطقه معينه في اتجاه الدوله المصريه.
and terror started from a launching pad somewhere against the Egyptian state.
بطاقات ماليه، بطاقات معنويه. هو كل اسره قدمت شهيد
Because the Egyptians are known to have their own
بشكل مباشر.
moral finance capabilities.
لما النهارده نلاقي ابنائنا في الجيش والشرطه وحتى اللي في الشارع وحتى اللي في الكنيسه وحتى اللي في المسجد
We have been grieved.
مش عليهم
We have been grieved for the loss of our children, our people, our young people and children in the army, in the police, even down at the hands of terror.
في الموضوع دوت. هذه الدول لن تتقدم.
Those countries those countries gripped by terrorists will not be further developed. We have been preoccupied, unjustifiably preoccupied with those terrorist activities while leaving and forgetting all about the real reasons and the real cause for development. Those developed countries have
يا ترى انتوا حاسين الناس شايفه الارهاب بتاعنا ده عامل ازاي؟
Do you see how those people
شايفه تاثير عدم المواجهه الفكريه وتصويب
do religious scholars really see the impact of not confronting terror?
800 سنه
Don't you realize that we are lagging
بما يتلائم مع العصر اللي احنا فيه. مش مصدق لغايه دلوقتي. انت بتتكلم متخلف عن الموضوع 700 سنه ورا.
You have been lagging behind for 700 or 800 years.
يصطدم مع الحياه ومع
Those extremist or radical people taking religion as disguise have been running
تضرب في بعضها يعني.
Allah did not create the world for people to remain in conflict.
هل الارهاب بقى زي ما الزملاء قالوا كده في زياده ولا في انحسار؟ للاسف
Has terrorism been on the increase or on the wane, as our colleague said? Unfortunately, terrorism has been on the increase, unfortunately and regrettably.
سوريا وادلب وقبل كده
We have seen it in Syria, in Idlib,
خرجوا السنه اللي فاتت ولا هيجوا لكم في مصر.
and when they last year they took out and said they went out of their own countries and said they are coming to you in Egypt. Terrorists said so last year.
عسكريه ولا قدراتها الامنيه تقدر تجابه الموضوع.
So
الظاهره مش بخوف
the phenomenon,
لكن انا بقول ان هي الظاهره زي ما اتقال كده للاسف يبدو ان هو وحش.
but it seems I'm not intending to intimidate or panic anybody, to scare anybody away, but it seems that terrorism looks like a monster which has been let out from its cage, from its hideout.
جماعات عشان
Organizations have been wielding terror in order to give themselves gravity weight.
قال العائدون
You have been talking about returnees. colleagues, some of our colleague panels refrained from mentioning or naming countries, which said we are going to partly receive those retainees, only partly. Why? They have programs to tackle the issue. We can give you, there's some countries said, well, I give you to give retainees money rather than receiving them. We're going to give you back the returnees. Don't kill them, just put them on trial. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Your Excellency President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. Thank you to all panelists at the stage who have contributed to this opening inaugural session. With this session comes to a close, and we are now breaking for some rest. We are now going to break for some rest, and please don't leave.